A client of mine was following all the classic YouTube advice. She was posting consistently. She posted for a consistent 18 months. She created long form value, which is exceptional, optimizing her SEO, but averaged 300 views per video with zero qualified leads to show for it. Today, I'm going to show you a step-by-step framework on how to attract high-ticket buyers with a couple algorithm shifts that you can apply literally today. So let's get into step one, shall we? So step one is to define your audience and unfair advantage. Now, if you've created a product or a service, you know what I'm talking about when I say market research. So the reason we want to be precise in our audience is because how are we supposed to attract people who we don't know who they are in the first place? So first things first, we need to find their current state. So that's the first thing. Second, their desired transformation that they can, that transformation they'll get from your service, product, your videos, your content. And lastly, the stakes if they fail. So you really want to tie into this one in terms of creating your content and ideation, which we'll get into. Now, once you identify these three right here, you pretty much have your core audience, an audience who is ready to buy now. Now, what we need to do is find your casual and your broad audience. How do we do that? Well, your core audience is pretty much people who are ready to buy now. Casual are people who are interested or warming up into your product or service. And lastly, your broad, who are pretty much going to inevitably come into your service or come into your circle of casual audience and hopefully into your core is what we want ultimately. Now, for example, my core audience are entrepreneurs who are looking to get leads on YouTube. My casual audience would be people or entrepreneurs who haven't started a YouTube channel but are interested in starting one, who already have a product or service to create a brand. The broad audience would be, the broad audience would be people who are looking to just start a YouTube channel in general. So once they start a YouTube channel in general, then they become entrepreneurs and create a product or service that they want to market to, which they come into my casual audience, and then hopefully they come to my core audience who are serious about this and who seriously want to get leads on YouTube as a way of client acquisition. Now, once we identify our three audiences, our audience layers as we call it, we then tap into our unfair advantage. Now, because most niches in YouTube are quote unquote saturated, if not all of them, but at a point, if all niches are saturated, then what does saturated even mean? But I don't want to get too much into that. But our unfair advantage. Now, there are four types. Now, firstly is access. So what do you have access to? Where can you go? Where can you be? Who can you talk to? That's a form of advantage that you could tap into. Knowledge. So what do you know? Now, we also have skill here. Now, the difference between knowledge and skill is application. So I'll go ahead and put APP. Oh, this looks disgusting. Application. Should have just wrote this down. But those are pretty much the differences between knowledge and skill. You could have knowledge in something, but you cannot apply it. You can't have a skill in something if you don't know if you don't know it pretty much. So the difference between these two is if you have skill, you pretty much can tie in knowledge as well. You can't tie in skill if you just have the knowledge, if you haven't applied it yet. Now, personality. Now, what do I mean by that? That sounds very what is it, My Little Pony, just requiring your personality type of thing. But what I mean by personality is what sets you different than all the other personality traits in your niche. For example, in the 10K a month business niche, let's say, and how to make money fast, you have people who pretty much just want to attract whoever they can and who are speaking very fast and who want to just tap into that 10 to 15-year-old demographic. Now, if you're very serious, on the other hand, that's something that you could have as your unfair advantage, that you tie more into the older demographic of that 18 to 25, 18 to 30. So that's what I mean by personality. Now, ultimately, why are we doing this? Well, we're deciphering why they choose you over somebody else who is ultimately getting more views than you, because it's probably why you're here, because you want more views. Now, if you identify your audience, if you identify your audience layers, so your three types of audiences, and your unfair advantage, you have clearly found why they should choose you. Now, moving on is step two, to find and adapt proven ideas using outliers. Now, what are outliers? Outliers are pretty much videos that compared to their other content, let's see in a channel's content, doesn't have to be yours, but in a channel's video, they average 1,000 views per video, but one video got 10,000 views in the last 30 days. Well, then therefore that's an outlier. That's a 10x outlier right there, that video that got 10,000 views. So we want to find videos like that because they're pretty much, what's the word? They've been proven. I'm trying to find a better word for it, but they've been proven by the market. So the best applications for that is vidIQ and 1 of 10. I personally use 1 of 10 a lot more than vidIQ because it's pretty much used for outlier ideation. vidIQ is more of a tool for everything, a jack of all trades. I did work for 1 of 10 at a time, which might be a bit biased, but yeah, 1 of 10 is by far the best. So you want to find outliers both in your niche and outside your niche, videos that are performed extremely well compared to what the average views are of the other channels. Now, once you find an outlier, you need to extract the core concept. So I can't think of an example right now, but let's say what's one? It's how I'd make 10K a month if I started over again, something like that. Don't use that. That's very outdated. But you could say how I'd make 100K a month using, I don't know, selling books if I had to do it all over again. So that would be in the application of a niche, of the book niche. I don't know anything about the book niche, but let's just say that as an example. Now you want to reframe it to your audience's transformation. So if someone does want to make $100,000 a month selling books, then that's a good transformation. If they don't care about the money, they just want to, let's say, publish their books. So instead of how to make $100,000, how to publish 100,000 books a month. So that's a way to tap into the audience's transformation there. And then you want to inject your unfair advantage. So it doesn't have to be in the packaging itself. It could be in the content where you ask, perhaps again in the book niche, in the publication niche, you ask someone who has published $100,000 or 100,000 books in 1 month and ask them and interview them. And that will be an unfair advantage of access, for example, in terms of knowledge and skill. Again, the only difference is application. But perhaps if you did it yourself, then that will be the best case scenario. And then personality-wise, that will be something that will take a lot more consideration. So that is how you adapt the logic in your outlier. Now, once you do that, you need to qualify them, right? You need to make sure it's simple to explain, that your idea is simple to explain. It's easy to package visually because we have to think about the thumbnail, which we'll get into soon, the packaging. And then it contains some sort of novelty value or novelty angle, which would be the $100,000 a month or the 100,000 books published. So that's a novelty value to it. We're providing an exact numeric value to it. Next is packaging that stops the scroll. So we need to create thumbnails and titles. That's pretty much packaging. So we could just pretty much just read off this list of what the good thumbnails are. So they have high contrast, they have 3 to 4 elements max, and a 1 second comprehension test. So pretty much, can you understand it in 1 second? Just taking a glimpse at it, can you pretty much understand what you're trying to portray or what value you're providing through the video? And that there's no visual clutter, and that's according to the 3 to 4 elements there. If we look at these thumbnails, which are outliers for the channels, we know what outliers are, videos that perform extremely well compared to their other videos. For example, we'll go into, let's see, 3 to 4 elements max. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 1, 2, 3. We could put that as 3. Maybe this one has 4. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe this one could be 5, but even then it's using the same color scheme, so it's pretty much just a mesh into one element there. So, and then no visual clutter. There's no visual clutter in this as well. You can pretty much see what the video was about in 1 second. 2 hours a day, 19,000 using AI. That's pretty easy. And these other ones as well. And then high contrast. So this green, this red here is for a reason. This color of yellow is also for a reason. So title rules, you want to make sure it's under 55 characters. That's portraying for phones. That's a necessity for phones, so that way it doesn't cut out. Now, in order to make sure it doesn't cut out, because usually, sometimes my titles are more than 55 characters, but I really use strong words first, so that way if it does cut out, then we have the strong words used firstly, so strong words first. And then the same story as the thumbnail, so they're complementing each other, and that there's no repetition, however. You want it to complement, you want them to complement each other, not to repeat. So the same thing with this, the laziest way to make money with AI. He's showing how much time and how much you can make with how to invest as a teenager to become a millionaire in your 20s. Age 13 plus, do this, so he's not repeating in your 20s. He's showing off money. And then 7 passive income ideas, how I make $2,000 per day. He shows more than 2,000, and he shows passive income as well. So 7 income streams. So it does complement, and he's holding money as well. So that is pretty much step 3. We can move on to the next step, which is what happens when they click on your video. Well, they instantly go into your hook. Now, what makes a good hook, and what is a hook? Well, the hook is the first 10 to 20 seconds to maybe 30 seconds of your video. So how do you build a hook? Well, you provide proof. I think it's proof, promise, plan. So you want to provide proof as to what you've done. So for example, I provided proof in this video that a client of mine was following all the classic YouTube advice. Promise, so I tell you what you're going to learn, and then plan planning out how many steps this is going to take, and even portrayed it to you in this zoom out view of what the plan is. We're right here. So anyway, so that's proof, promise, plan. And then that's what roadmap stands for as well. Now, what is the main video structure? So once you go past the proof, promise, plan, past the hook, what do you get into? Well, you get into the segments. For example, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, principle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's my favorite way of setting up a video, is using keys or principles, because it just makes it easier for the viewer to know where they're at in the video, not just one large chunk of content. So for each principle, let's say, we want to have a setup, which is its own mini hook. So the proof, principle, plan doesn't provide or isn't exact on the setup here, but it's just a hook to get into the tension of the video. So you want to tie into why this is important, what happens if they don't do it, this exact principle, and then you want to use a payoff. My favorite type of payoff is revealing it. You do not want to reveal the principle. So let's say, what was the first principle here? Our first step, define your audience and unfair advantage. So what I would do if this was just, a floating head video, is just be like, you need this because if you don't do this, then everything else is going to crumble down. If you do this, then your video, your YouTube channel will be set up for success. And what is that? Well, that is to define your core audience and your unfair advantage. Bam. So that's an example of a setup, tension, and payoff. And then we want to have retention reinforcers. So for example, those are progress bars, those are step indicators, I can't speak, or visual checkpoints every 2 minutes. Now what I mean by that, so step indicators could be something like this: step 4, step 3, and how many steps are there in total? I forgot. 6 steps. So as you can tell, we're probably a little bit more than halfway through the video, if I had to guess. I don't know where I am, of course. We can also use progress bars, so little bars saying, I think you've seen it if you watch Alex Hormozi or anyone like that, where they go into a principle and it shows a bar of how far we are in that exact principle. So maybe in this principle, for example, in this step, structure, hook, and video retention, we're at the 80% mark, slowly gliding to the 100%. So that's what I mean by there. However, and this is going to go into our next step, if you watch this video and realize your YouTube strategy is missing half of these pieces or more, then feel free to book a consultation with me down below. I'll make sure I'll triple your qualified leads within 90 days, and I have a special guarantee if you want to check that out. That flows in beautifully into our CTAs. So we want to have 2 types of CTAs, a mid-video CTA and an end-video CTA. Our mid-video could be about putting in a subscription, so tell someone to subscribe, or it could be about, hey, my consultation, my service, or my product. So you want to usually place that around step 3 or 4. If, let's say, you have a 5-step, 6-step process, which I did end up doing at step 4. You want to connect it to your current topic, which is what I did. I'm like, hey, by the way, we're going to get into this section, but let me show you my CTA. You want to explain why the video alone is incomplete and the promised specific value they'll get from said CTA, from said product, service, video, or subscription from your channel. So for your end video, you want to use end of video CTAs for casual viewers who need more trust. So if someone needs more trust into buying your product or service, an end video CTA being like, hey, this video isn't complete unless you watch this, and watch this full video if you want to see how I do that for my video here for this exact video. But yeah, you want to structure every CTA in 10 seconds, should not be more than 10 seconds. As you can see, mine was maybe 10 seconds if I had to guess. I don't have a stopwatch on me, but you want to make sure it's 10 seconds or less, and using your audience's desires, fears, and motivations. So like I said, if you're missing half of these strategies, then feel free to book a consultation, because something is definitely not right. But if you want to apply it yourself, then by all means, please do. That's why I have this type of content here. So that's going to move us into step 6, our last one. So you'll want to focus on CTR, which is showing you how well your packaging did, your retention/ABD, how well your hook and structure did, and impressions. So pretty much CTR and ABD mixed together. The result of that is how YouTube displays it to viewers, or how many of them they display it to. So your CTR, for example, a good CTR would be somewhere around 8 to 10% is what we like it. In terms of ABD, we want to definitely pass the 50% mark. If it's not past the 50% mark, so let's say your video is 10 minutes long, we want it to be past 5 minutes, pretty much. You can find that in analytics and content, and find your impressions here. Impressions are a result of how good your CTR is and how your ABD is. However, you do want to beware of impressions, because, for example, I believe this was Paddy Galloway who taught this. He's a great consultant who's worked with Mr. Beast and just a whole bunch of other crazy creators who have millions and millions, hundreds of millions of subscribers. But let's say I showed off something to my friends and family. I showed off a book that I had. We'll use the example of a book again. Show a book that I had to my family members, like, oh, this is great. But let's say I show it to someone random on the street, and they're like, oh, this sucks. So that's pretty much why we want to capture as well our core, casual, and broad audience. That way, YouTube is firstly going to test it on our core audience, so who's subscribed to us, who's mostly interested. But once it feels we did really good there, like let's say our AVD is 90%, which is fantastic. Our CTR is at 10%, which is also fantastic. So like, okay, let's move this to your casual. However, let's say it moved on to your casual, but then the CTR dropped to 2% and the AVD dropped to 25%. Then it's like, oh, okay, this casual audience does not like this type of content. We're going back to core. So that's why you want to have all three tied in. So that way, when YouTube does inevitably test it out on other types of viewers, other audience layers, that it does perform well, getting you both views and leads in the process. So we want to get you both ultimately. That would be the dream goal there. But yeah, so you want to make sure limited impressions despite strong CTR and retention means your idea set the floor too low or packaging didn't raise the ceiling enough. So your idea sets the floor, your packaging sets the ceiling. So an idea can only be as good as how you package it, right? If you don't package it correctly, and that's according to the outlier itself, which you could take inspiration from, so like an outlier on how to make $100,000 a month, you look into the packaging of that video and apply it to your video as well. And then you want to track the metrics and your market, how your market responds, how your market replies, and then measure leads through UTM links. This is so important because you want to make sure that your video is actually doing well and what video is leading to people clicking on your Calendly link, on your product, on your service, on your website, anything like that. Because if we don't see those results, then we don't know what to do with all this information that we have. So yeah, that is how to turn your YouTube channel into a client machine. Now, let's see, I think I had a CTA here, but you know what? I hope this helps, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.